Supervisor Pritchard or Supervisor Duncanson, can either of you hear me? They don't have their audio hooked up yet. Chair Nelson, can you hear me?
Yes.
We have a quorum. The other two haven't quite joined in, but we have a quorum.
All right, we're gonna get started then. We'll call the Federal Government Committee meeting to order at 10:07 or whatever you have. A motion to approve the agenda. So move. Hate to see it die for lack of a second.
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? What do you think about moving some of these up a little bit? We've got some people to speak on broadband. I think there's some here to speak on library, maybe tourism. I don't think we need to do our space analysis and our discussion on the recycling center and, have these people sit here, so. Any issue with moving some of these up?
Go ahead and move them up, Chair. It's your discretion.
All right. All those in favor of approving the agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. How about the minutes, September 25th?
I'll make the motion to approve the.
Any discussion on the minutes?
No.
Aye.
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 Anyone has any conflicts of interest with anything on the agenda, just let us know when we get to it and we'll deal with it. Public comments?
We have no public comments scheduled other than the two letters you received.
All right. Are there any supervisors not seated as committee members that have any information for us? No? How about announcements and committee information? There's going to be an orientation October 22nd, 8:30 in the morning, all day event. You might want to make a note. You'll probably get what you're already aware of.
Email has gone out. I will be sending out more information. 8:30 start. Exciting.
Yeah.
And it will be videotaped.
All right, let's, we got some, what's that? We got some requests for funding. I think we'll hold on them a little bit. Why don't we let, Terry and John on broadband, give us lead us into a discussion on that, and we'll go into the.
You guys pull up a folding chair up there. I think, not to put you on the spot, but we can just have a conversation. You guys know John Platt?
Yep.
CEO of Lakeland Communications. Terry Howard, the EDC director.
I did. It took a while, but I did. I have audio. Yep, I'm good.
Mr. Pritchard, I know specifically had asked for specific activities or things we could do to support our goal of expanding broadband to every resident in Polk County. Two people that I've become familiar with very well with respect to broadband, John and Terry. We've had a few conversations, as well as I've talked with people at other ISPs here in the county to generate ideas. John is unique in that from a provider, a company, he knows some of the challenges that you run up against when you deal with a county or a local government. Terry, of course, works with businesses and schools that need internet. So, we just wanted to offer some suggestions or ideas, and then maybe generate more ideas on how we can direct our staff to help with expanding broadband. Did you guys have anything you wanted to say right up front?
Well, I'll start, I guess. And I want to start with, first off, I think the work that Polk County has done in the last 5 years is a significant success story. I want to thank you. When we last visited, I think on broadband deployment in the county, there was some significant hurdles in terms of permitting, fees, costs that we discussed at the county level. And we had the discussion at that time. I think I had presented to the county board. There was a document that we used here that our national association put together. That I shared at that time in terms of what the economic impact of rural broadband was and how important broadband could be to being an asset to the county and attracting residents, visitors, business and commerce. And little did we know that there was a pandemic coming a few years, but the deployment in Polk County's work at that time to improve conditions, permitting and otherwise, really made it much more enticing and enhanced, I think, broadband providers in the private sector to invest in Polk County. In the discussions that I had with Terry and with Vince, I went back and I have a little exhibit here I'm going to leave with you. But this is a picture of two of our employees, at least at Lakeland, and we cover a greater portion of Polk County. And this is John and Earl Erickson, of which both of those employees are long been retired. But this is the first fiber optic cable that we put in September 14th, 1990. So we've been doing this for 30 years, and it just didn't happen to come about in 2015 or 2016 when we started to deal with the permitting issues. And we've been committed to Polk County, and I'm happy to tell you that we've completed fiberization, at least in the northern portions, the greater northern portions, in its entirety. Less one segment, and it sounds very similar to the issues that we had with Polk County, and that's with the tribal reservation, and we're running into permitting issues around the greater Big Round Lake, and we've engaged with engineers, attorneys, but we still have yet to get those permits and easements to deploy and fiberize. So we really have two networks that are going on, and that's when it becomes expensive. That when you have a copper-based plant that's been in place since 1970, and we've converted across the greater part of northern Polk County to fiber, but we still have to maintain those two plants because we can't complete fiberization. So we're slightly over, in the last about 14 years, we're slightly over 900 miles of fiber that we deployed in Polk County, and that we've grown, again, because you've improved and lessened the thresholds and costs. We have built out away from what we call our common ILEC area, our incumbent local exchange area, that we have a regulated obligation to be the carrier of last resort. So we've built as far as East Farmington and as far north as Frederick. So Lakeland Communications serves almost every one of the communities, less Amory, Clear Lake, Clayton. That might be it. I may be missing something there. So we have a vast reach that's going outside to serve Polk County and Polk County businesses and residents. Again, I want to thank you. It's a significant success story. And when I hear of these same challenges that other independent providers in our space are having, what you all have done here and the work that you've done in Polk County is very helpful. And I get called on from a lot of our peers across the state as well as nationally about how did we get to this point in deployment. So you've done a lot of good things, in terms of getting to this point. Is there some more? Yeah, I think we had some discussions with Terry and Vince and I. And I want to compliment Mo Norby. He's been fabulous to work with at the County Highway Department in permitting and working with Todd Ream and our organization. Can't say enough in terms of how well that's gone. I also went and looked at some of the other interactions that we're having with the county. And up to date, we have approximately about 150,000 in easement fees. So network-wise, over the last 14, 15 years, we've invested slightly over 40 million. Fiberization, deployment, and construction costs are significant. And so money is a deterrent in terms of them entering the market. And I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of the other providers in the county, but the reading material that's public that I get, I think that's one of the reasons why CenturyLink is not entered, because they have probably better investments for return on investment in other parts of the United States. Polk County is probably not high on their list. So the other expense and the other interaction that we have with the county that I addressed with Vince and with Perry was in regards to the easement filing. We file easements to protect that broadband fiber and network equipment and apparatus. And so we're slightly over 150,000 that we've invested in terms of those fees. We would certainly be happy to chat about that if you had any way to bulk, consider that, or reduce that threshold. Again, as you start to add up these elements and increments, they start to become substantial across a large expanse of real estate in the county and within projects. So other than that, those are some of the high points that I wanted to touch on. We've had a number of meetings, maybe Terry and or Vince would like to add and fill in some of the blanks and the pieces that we had some of our discussions about this topic. And it's very important to us all, I think, in terms of the success. And Lakeland certainly wants to do its part in terms of deploying so that you have, you're attracting business and residents to Polk County, and that the goods and services that are associated with broadband deployment will help us all.
John, I don't know the answer to this question, but how many ISPs serve Polk County? I mean, I know some of the names, but just the total number, I guess I'm not sure.
Well, that's a hard question to answer. I think in my email I sent you the list. It's much, much larger than people give credit to. The ones that have a presence in terms of CenturyLink, Northwest Communications, you have NextGen, ourselves, Charter, Spectrum. You have the wireless folks in terms of Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile. But then there's Telesat. There's a number of satellite providers, and there's a lot more coming around the corner. If you're familiar with the term of LEO satellites, probably the most famous one is around Elon Musk and Space Star, or StarX, depends on how they market it. And that's really, I think, kind of driven by having an autonomous car and and that cellular service can't guarantee autonomous car driving because of the opens and issues that there are, but the low orbiting satellite systems cover all of the nation and probably all of the world. And my last reading on that, there's 4 or 5 in the United States. There's United States. So there's a lot of competitors in the space. I know that the general public conception is that, oh, there's only one show in town. That's not true. That's not true.
Well, Supervisor Pritchard had sent us some questions, and I just wanted to at least address a little bit to give credit to ISPs like John's company, and John is also on the board for the Polk County Economic Development Corporation. So great resource for us to pull from the broadband perspective, and having his insight is great. But I went back, Supervisor Pritchard wanted to know kind of growth over the last 3 years for grants. And in just to show you how well Polk County has done, in 2018, there was one grant awarded for $80,000. In 2019, there was, I think, 5 or 6, I couldn't qualify that, but $327,000, so a nice jump. And this last year, there were 6 projects. Lakeland had a couple other providers were in there as well, for $1.1 million of grants. So, you know, we're making the right steps, and ISPs are stepping up to go for these grants. I know that's not a fun process to go through, but it kind of gives you an idea of where we're headed. And from an economic development standpoint, you know, there's 3 issues that come up, and this is a rural issue, and I think Polk is a little bit ahead of most, but the 3 issues that continually come up is housing, broadband, and workforce. And of course, broadband and that connectivity is a huge driver. And, you know, COVID-19 has definitely brought that much more to the surface for education, people working from their homes and things like that. But the business parks, that's one of the first things they ask about, and people coming into the community that want to buy here. It's one of the first things they'll ask a realtor. What's the internet service? You know, it's a utility. It's your gas, it's your water. You know, it's that needed right now. So economically, it's a very important issue that affects, you know, a lot of different aspects. And we're just looking to maybe come up with some ideas how we can, as a county, maybe have some incentivized programs to have people that maybe couldn't run the internet to their house. Maybe it runs in front of their place, but they didn't connect to the house because of the cost or something like that. Those are just, you know, a couple ideas that we threw out and thought we'd bat around. But that's really, it is an expensive service to run. People like John's company have, you know, it does get to be where it just doesn't pay to run a line because the service isn't going to pay on that line for those few people. And that's the kinds of things that we need to figure out. How can we get that last mile to get everyone connected?
I could kind of throw out some summary comments here. Talked about what initiated and spurred some of these grants, and it is when we went broadband forward and telecommuter forward by reducing fees, making it simpler. It did incent the internet service providers, I think, a little bit to say, hey, the county's with us now. Instead of always putting up the stop sign, they were saying, okay, we're with you on this. And I think that makes a difference. Continuing to reduce easement fees and those types of things would certainly incent ISPs to look elsewhere or to look for a new addition. Teamwork, and this is where Terry plays a key role too, is when we see a new development, a new project, a new industrial park proposed, teaming up with businesses, communities, economic development to say, let's all get on board. If everybody puts their lines in at once, it's a lot less expensive than everybody planning individually. So teamwork is going to be key. The other one, and I'll let Chad speak to this because he's the one that brought it up. It's one thing to incent internet service providers to invest the expense of running line out. But it's gotta be frustrating is when they run a line past a bunch of houses and businesses and they don't hook up. And you know how it is, many times people go, well, I wish I had better internet, but it costs, for me to upgrade to higher speeds and capabilities, it's gonna cost me an extra $20 a month. And they go, no. That's gotta be frustrating. But Chad threw out, could we incent with a grant, so to speak, for the first so many homeowners in the county who apply for and will sign up for, I'll pay the cost of running it from the road to my house. So if we could get, I don't know, Chad, do you want to?
So just the idea being, if you, kind of where the idea springs from is, when solar was incentivized, when moving to high efficiency gas heaters was incentivized, there were tax rebates. The idea would be we could set up an account and you could budgetarily control it because you could say, okay, we're only allotting X number of dollars for fiscal year 2022. And we have a one-page application for citizens that if the citizens, we say we will give $300 to a homeowner to help offset the cost of running the fiber from the road to their house to establish internet service. We will give $450 to a commercial establishment. And they do an application that we designate an approving authority. And then the county gives a direct incentive once that cost is incurred by the taxpayer or business. Just an idea of how you connect. So as we understood from the service providers, they've got fiber run out and now it's connecting from the endpoint to the fiber, from the consumer to the fiber and establishing that. So the question becomes, is that a barrier for the consumer? Does the consumer look at internet and say, I would really like to have high speed for my family. It's going to cost me $69.95 a month. I can afford that, but it's going to cost me $1,000 to run it from my house, which sits along a driveway, which we know many of our driveways in Polk County are long and set back, and I just can't do $1,000. But the county is going to give me $300 if I do it. I can do $700. That's worth getting on board. Is that an idea the committee wants to consider? Just as, maybe that's a different route we look at as a direct taxpayer rebate for establishing service, something like that.
I suspect that John would be happier knowing that instead of running past 100 homes, and you probably have an estimate, if we run past these 100 homes, we'll get a certain percent.
Great, yeah.
Yeah. And if we provided an incentive for consumers, might an extra 10% or 15% say, yeah, I'll do that. So.
Chair?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I'll just throw in a couple 2 cents worth for you guys to consider. Obviously, you guys know that I'm in construction business. I've attended a few other meetings around the county about this, and I think it's a bigger picture. Like John talked about, it's housing, it's economic development, it's all that above. The problem that I see out there and what I hear is, we don't have the Walmart developers in Polk County, and maybe we don't want that, right? Where you develop a big project, but we do have people in the county, and I'm one of them, who have a parcel of land and you want to develop it. And you think it's a good spot to bring in 10, 20, 30 homes in a rural setting. And, talk about everyone buying in to say, hey, I'll pay, or you work with that homeowner. But I believe the real hurdle is it's before you get the home built where someone's like, hey, I need it up my way. The developers are looking at it as, yeah, you can put a road in, but the township doesn't want the road. They don't want to pay for no road. They don't want to take it over. So the developer to put the road in, well, then the developer has to put blacktop on it. If the township's even going to consider taking it, the developer has to contact the gas company. We Energy says, well, yeah, if you want me to run up this half a mile road for your development, you're going to have to spend $10,000. Lakeland says, yeah, I can run up this road too, so you can develop these lots, but it's $10,000. Northwestern Power says, yeah, I can run up that road, but it's another $10,000. So before you even get a home built, I believe the structural problem with the system right now is we're not building more homes on existing roads. There's a few of them, but if we really have a housing problem, and how do we get people to invest in Polk County, you're going to have to address it earlier than the homeowner issue, because the homeowner's not coming if you don't have the lot for them to build their home on. And I'll just throw that out there for you guys to talk about. Thanks.
Very good point. I think it makes a lot of sense for us in that many of the businesses in industry that come, they want to be turnkey. They want all the infrastructure in place when they come here. And when they start shopping around and they're comparing to St. Croix County or Pierce County or Barron County or Burnett County, and they see a turnkey opportunity, and that curb, sewer, water, electric, broadband, all those are in place, and all they need to do is start building. It's I think, much more attractive. Likewise, to the point, I think it's a great idea. It's a significant threshold to these people when we are venturing out and competing with other providers in the Polk County space, is that drop. And we remind them that, or one of the things that's significant is it's an investment in your home, just like the electric. And there's a 5 to 7% increase in your real estate property when you go around to sell it, if you have fiber connectivity. So it really pays for itself. And then if you can have this infrastructure, as Chris is describing, that maybe it's a conduit. Maybe you have a county rebate incentive program that goes from the right of way into the multi-dwelling or to the resident that doesn't have it, and they have some sort of rebate. The conduit that's unbiased to any provider or multiple providers, because it's never exclusive. You can flip and switch providers throughout the month if you want. We really don't like to have long-term contracts unless we have a significant investment. We don't want to strand that, lose that. And some of those longer drops or longer developments or bigger construction projects, that's where we'll have to enter in a contract so that we make sure that we recover our construction costs. And Chris is spot on with that they're not cheap. And it's much like electrical. People know they have to have electrical, and they're willing to pay that $5.50, $6 a foot to plow it. And if you have to do directional bores underneath wetlands, blacktop, other infrastructure, now you're starting to talk $15 a foot to do directional boring into the home. So it gets to be a significant threshold, and that's usually where the chain breaks, because we're all providing the main line at no cost, and that's built into our business plan. But that last piece, we expect the subscriber to have some skin in the game, so to speak.
There are.
Chair.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, and following up on that, and one of my thoughts was, a lot of municipalities do it, and I don't know how we can do it in a township or level, but, we do these TIF or TID districts where, municipalities are able to have an undeveloped piece of property, and all the tax authorities come together and they agree to, stay at their current funding for that parcel of property, and allows a municipality to finance development, and that municipality can finance that, and then with the additional tax base that comes into it, they are able to pay that municipality back over years. And then when that development is completed, that TIF funding has been paid, now everyone shares in the additional tax base that's been built. And I just wonder if that's an opportunity, instead of maybe handing out grants. And I'm thinking on the front end, on the development side, whether it's commercial, industrial, residential, that the county could participate in something like that, where just throw that out there as a thought for discussion. Thanks.
I just wanted to add too that the state, of course, does have initiatives as well. I'm not sure how that breaks down to the county level, but the broadband office for Wisconsin, that's part of the state government, has 24 million this year in grants for 2021 that they'll be available. ISPs will be able to apply for. And the governor also has 2 different panels right now that are addressing rural expansion and rural development. And there's some funds available within there too that Polk County might be able to take advantage of and apply towards some broadband initiatives.
Mr. Chair, I think Supervisor Duncanson wants to ask a question.
Go ahead, Fran.
Just going to make a comment to what Chris was saying. Actually, in Wisconsin, this changed about maybe less than 5 years ago. Towns can create TID districts. They need to adopt village powers. And then they are able to do that as a tool now. It's not just cities and villages anymore.
All right, good information. So where do we proceed from here? You got.
I think the staff and I have been talking about what are some best proposals. Maybe, we might introduce some in the budget. But I think also I think the next step is continuing this communication, maybe get a working group to identify some of those TID opportunities, some of those development opportunities, make sure we're going there. But also I'd ask the supervisors to continue feeding ideas to us, and we can do the analysis as to which one might have the biggest, best impact.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
So is someone here from tourism? Is someone here from the museum? And is someone here from the library? Or isn't the library on here? I thought there was something from the library.
If you recall from the last meeting, Mr. Pritchard, we said, hey, do we want library to come? And Mr. Pritchard, I thought was going to connect with them and have them submit or come here. But I have not heard from Mr. Pritchard.
Right.
But this is Mike Pritchard, if I may speak for a moment or two. My understanding, well, I don't know. I guess I had expected there was going to be a handout resolution this morning for this meeting, which I don't know if that has happened or not. The libraries in Polk County did meet, and they are requesting, as I understand it, an increase from the 90% Act 150 funding that was currently in place, up to 95% funding for I guess that would be payout in 2021. And I had understood that representatives of the libraries would be viewing the program online this morning. I don't know if I had problems logging in, so I didn't hear any public comments. But my understanding, again, that there is a request to go from 90% funding to 95% funding. And you will recall, and we talked about it at our September meeting, that our 5-year plan called for going to 100% funding. And I think we authorized the 90% funding 2 years ago, if that's correct, I believe. And so I don't know, there's a document in front of us on the agenda, and I'm not quite sure where we go from here.
There, if I can give some clarification. We do have a representative from the library on the level. We have considered a resolution to the we did receive written comments. All right, I want everyone to know is who was here for what, and what order you'd like to go.
We asked Mr. to mute his phone.
Can you mute, Mike, unless you're talking, we're getting a lot of background from you.
I just muted him.
You guys want to arm wrestle for who goes first, or?
How about if I just stand up?
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee who are here and members who are attending externally. I'm William Johnson, and I currently chair the Polk County Tourism Council. And they, of course, are the governing body of the Polk County Information Center. And this is the 26th year of operation, I believe, of the Information Center in St. Croix Falls. It's been promoting Polk County for those 26 years. The members of the committee got a packet in front of them who are here, and the other ones will make sure the clerk gets them into the mailboxes. And there are a number of documents in that we're going to just briefly go through today. You can read them on your own. One of them is called the Information Center at a Glance. And that one basically talks about all of the programming that we do down there. It's about a page and a half. And obviously, because of the COVID thing, not all of that has happened, I guess. You can kind of figure out what we're able to do, what we're not able to do. And then there's a document, sort of a narrative of the finances and how we have dealt with reduced hours and a few things like that because of the drop off in tourism activities. And then there are some financial documents in there that talk about how we've adjusted our budget and how things are looking forward. But the big news is we've got some really interesting programming coming, working with the state of Wisconsin, the Department of Tourism. And I think everybody in the state has realized that the tourism industry was the first to get really hit by the COVID thing. And it's also the first thing that's going to make a strong comeback. And we've seen a lot of that in Polk County, just the outdoor recreation type of activities that are going on, the use of state parks and those sorts of outdoor things that we have. Fortunately, we have a good list of assets. And then the other really interesting piece of information, the document that's in there, and it compares the visitor spending to our surrounding counties. And you look at the numbers on that and the increases that have gone up, and our chief financial officer, Earl Duckett, will be talking a little bit more about that. But you figure, you look where Polk County stands as far as visitor spending, and you compare that to the other counties. We don't have an interstate. Our biggest city is 3,000, something like that. But we're right up there, and our percentage of increase has been even better than the whole state's increase in visitor spending. And in 2019, the number we had that we set a record in Polk County was $95.4 million. We're edging on $100 million in visitor spending in Polk County. And you look at that chart and compare it to the other counties around. So I will end with that. I just wanted to make one historical clarification that comes up once in a while. I wanted to speak real quickly on how the Information Center ended up in St. Croix Falls. That was done by a legislative grant back in the early 90s from the state of Wisconsin. It paid for that building. And the land underneath it was donated by a businessman from St. Croix Falls named Bob Clark. And when that legislative grant went through the legislature, it was signed by Governor Tommy Thompson at the time. And he was a real proponent. I think he was responsible for making the Department of Tourism a cabinet position at the state level where it has been. And the intent with that grant was that the grant was to the city of St. Croix Falls with the understanding that there would be an information center, a county-wide information center for visitors and residents to use, located at that site along with the village offices. So that's where the original inception of that place came from. And when Bob Clark donated the property, he would also had said the same thing. He would donate the property if it would forever be a Polk County Information Center and the city offices for St. Croix. So those two things are kind of written in stone down there. If you look at the building itself, the design of it is, when you walk in the door, the information center part of it is the primary focus. And part of our mission has been to promote all of Polk County, not just St. Croix Falls. So that's, we're very cognizant of that, It comes up all the time. Every discussion we have is, we want to make sure we include Clear Lake, Clayton, Lewis, Indian Creek, all the areas around. So I'm going to end with that. We also have Colleen Foxwell with us today, who is the executive director. And I said before, our chief financial officer, Earl Duckett. And we're also kind of excited. We've got 2 new board members that just came on within the last 6 months who are really big on social media stuff. So they'll talk a little bit about that in the narrative about how we're going to be working on a real push in that. And that's primarily why we're making a request for a modest increase in our funding. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for seeing us again. And our main publication, and I think all of you have seen this, is the Polk County Visitor Guide, which goes out to 25,000. We produced 25,000, and they are going to 650 kiosks and many visitor centers along the way. This last year, like everybody experienced, in March, we had to shut down. And I have a great board. I called these 2 guys up right away and said, what are we going to do? And we shut our visitor center down. I cut my hours. I cut my salary. We had Earl working on the money to figure out how are we going to make it. Because one of our biggest loss of revenues was travelers. And how we receive funding from various entities is through room tax dollars. And with everything shut down, nobody was going anywhere, we were sitting home, just like everybody else. And so we figured out how to maintain. We did lay the staff off, and I came in 1 day a week, but the main focus that I worked on was promoting ourselves through Facebook. That was about the only way we could promote. The end of May, we opened our doors again. I worked solo all summer, 5 days a week. We changed our hours. We cut back. Visitors were slowly coming back, and they are slowly coming back. And what they're doing is exactly what we're seeing recommended. Stay outside, do outdoor activities. Everybody was going camping. They were biking. They were ATVing. They were on trails, they were going in the river, and so that's where we really saw, where people were promoting themselves. Those businesses saw a real spike. Also at the state, they have hired, because they know that outdoor rec is extremely important. They are now, I believe, the 3rd state that has an outdoor rec person. So they followed behind Colorado, and I believe it's Utah that have a specific person, and we look forward to her helping us. As of September 1st, we did hire one of our staff back part-time. So that's where we are, and Earl will talk to you about our money situation, and I have to say I've got a wonderful board, and we're all working together. And if you have an opportunity, stop down to the information center and visit us. We've changed things up, and we're promoting ourselves in many local arts and that sort of thing. So people want that sort of stuff. So thank you.
name is Earl Deckett. I am the treasurer, financial guy for Polk County Tourism. I'm just going to kind of start in the middle of this narrative. We covered the first part. But looking back at from 2014 to 2019, that's a 5-year span. The direct visitor spending in Polk County went from 79.6 million up to 95.4 million. That's a 19.8% increase. During that same period of time, the funding for the Polk County Tourism Council from Polk County went from 66,487 up to 70,000. The last 3 years, it's been at 70,000. That's a 5.3% increase during that period of time. The estimates that I could find say that inflation went up about 9.3%. So the Polk County funding level is below the inflation rate. And we're simply asking to get back to, we're working with the same dollars. So that's why we've come through with a request to go from 70 to 75. That and COVID-19 hit. When that hit, we had a $30,000 shortfall. We estimated we were going to spend $30,000 more than we had, so we had to cut back. We had to reduce staff. We had to reduce the hours that the information center was open, and we were able to do that and get down to. Well, I think our funding right now will run out about the end of January. So we have enough money to get through January, and that's good because normally the allocation from Polk County comes at the end of January. So everything works, sort of. But when you look at 2021, it's going to take a while for room tax funding to come back. And room tax funding represents in the neighborhood of 20-25% of our funding. So we're estimating that we're going to get $18,000 next year from room tax. I'm looking at it right now. This COVID thing is lasting a little longer than what we thought back in March. And I'm guessing that might be optimistic, so I'm a little concerned about that. But that's kind of where we are. I did some analysis of the data. I took specifically what tourism defines as Northwest Wisconsin. That's 18 counties. Of those 18 counties, Polk right now is number 5. 5 years ago was number 6 in terms of direct visitor spending. And it was number 6 until last year, and then it jumped ahead of Sawyer County. So point there is that we are increasing. We're a significant piece of Northwest Wisconsin tourism. We have some significant objectives because we've been looking at this tourism thing and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to promote Polk County. So we have some objectives. I want to go through those. First thing for next year is to get the Polk County Information Center open at full time. And that during the off season, we're open 6 days a week, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, 9 to 5, and 1 day, 9 to 2, Saturdays, 12 to 9. During the busy season, which is May through October, we're open 7 days a week, 9 to 5. And that's what our goal is for next year. So get back open. The second thing is we've looked at the way people book vacations now versus 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Most of it's online. And that's where they go to search and say, where do I want to go? Where do I want to take my family? We've looked at our website. It's not really focused on tourism. It's kind of quasi-tourism, quasi-government. So we've decided that we need to develop a new website focused directly on tourism. Along, excuse me, along with that, that we develop a social media campaign and a blog writing program. Now, a blog is just an article that's posted on social media. So it's a blog or an article lives much longer than a post. It lives up to a year, year and a half. So we need to go around and find volunteers. Find volunteers to write somewhere between 50 and 100 blogs about what we have here in Polk County. And it's not just anybody that can write those blogs, because you want the passion to come out. So we need to find the right volunteers. And they should have some writing skills, and we need to look at what they write and put in the proper keywords so that when somebody searches for kayaking, St. Croix River comes up, Polk County comes up, and they come to our website instead of going to somebody else's website. So that's kind of the goal, is you do a website, you do a social media program, you do a blog writing program, and that increases traffic, and traffic brings you up faster than your competitor. So that's on the ticket for next year. The third objective is to develop a quarterly meeting program focused on tourism and with all of the Polk County communities. It's pretty obvious to me when you look at how do we get Polk County tourism up, you have to bring in your partners. And your partners are your community. They all have an interest in increasing Polk County tourism. We need to help them understand what we do. We need to understand what they're trying to do, and we need to focus as a group on tourism. It's something we haven't done in the past, but I think it's pretty important. And this will take some time, because when you start bringing people in and they've done their own thing for a lot of years, it'll take some time to get buy-in on. But I think long-term, that's a pretty good approach. And then finally, we need to formalize our tourism asset inventory. I've been on the council, I think 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that. I keep asking for where's the tourism inventory of all the things you have that attract tourists. And we kind of know it. We have a river, we have a national park, we have 2 state parks. We kind of know that stuff, but it's not written down anywhere. I mean, it's written down in a lot of places, but there's no single database that says, here's what we have. And when you're trying to develop promotional materials, whether it's social media or written programs, written print advertising, you need to go back and look at, well, what haven't we promoted? Because in the end, part of increasing tourism in Polk County is appealing to a broader range of people. We have a lot to offer here. And I think it'll take some time, but the long-term impact, if we are successful in pulling this off, and developing a good promotional program, long-term impact in 3 to 5 years could be significant. And we'll never get to number one in our region. Number one is Old Fair County. Number two is St. Croix County. We're probably not going to get to number two. They have an interstate going right through the center of their county. And people stop and stop for the night, hotel room, stop for gas. That all counts as tourism dollars. So we're not going to be there, but we could be number three. There's no reason why what we have here isn't promotable, and I think it's right. So, questions?
Are all of those initiatives already tied into your 2021 budget?
We're pretty much. What happens if we don't get the budget we're looking for, is that it's just going to delay us. Not going to change where we focus, but it might push it into 2022 somewhat.
And with your budget at a net profit larger than the amount you're asking for, are you hedging against what we might be up against in 2021, or is that?
A little bit. My background is finance, so I tend to be conservative.
Chair?
Chair, I'm trying to get in.
Yeah, Chris is trying to ask you a question.
Chris.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not gonna let you guys look at my head on the screen, so I'm just trying to get your attention there. But, you know, I have a number of questions. I've sat on general government for many years now, and a couple of questions that get brought up to myself and my constituents. They're kind of broad, but I'll just kind of run them off real quick, and hopefully you guys give me a few minutes here to work through this. Again, I always ask and always get asked if you could just very simply say, what is a tourism? Because I get asked, if I live in Balsam Lake and I go to Osceola for lunch, are those dollars counted as dollars? When you talk about, William talked about, you know, our tourism dollars increasing so much. And I think sometimes people think it's purely people coming from out of state or out of county. And I just wonder if someone could give me in context again, and it's never very clear, so I don't expect it to be any clearer today, but it might help some of the new board members, is what is tourism about?
Well,
And I have a follow-up.
I can try and answer that. I'm not sure I've been around long enough to understand what that 95.4 million is made up of. I don't know that it matters with respect.
No, it does. Excuse me. No, it does matter. And William Johnson was the one that made the comment. So I was looking at William explaining it.
Would you let me finish, please?
My question was to William.
Well, can you hear me, Chris?
Yes, I can.
The studies, the study that the state relies on for that is done by a company called Longwoods. And it's a nationwide company, and I do not know what their parameters are. At one time, I think they used to say if somebody travels 40 miles, you know, whether it's in county, outer county, or something like that, that tends to show up at that. But they use a whole lot of different things as far as, you know, zip code and registrations from hotels, and I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's probably a whole semester course in defining how they really do that. I know Jim Edgelaw was asked that question, and I don't have a hard and fast answer, but I think if you had the opportunity to get a hold of Julie Fox, the representative from this area, from the Department of Tourism, she can probably get a lot closer on that answer than I can. So.
Could you just furnish that for us, please?
Try what?
Could you guys get that information to the county board supervisors on how they do that calculation?
We can get that. You know, that would be something that would probably fall into the wheelhouse of the administrator. You know, doing program analysis and return on investment analysis kind of stuff. So maybe if Vince would be willing to contact the Department of Tourism, and Julie Fox is pretty accessible, so I think that should be pretty easy to do.
Okay, well, you guys, yeah, and I support tourism, but I'm just going to challenge you guys on a few things you're saying. So don't take it offensive. And I know we got to get through this quick. Give me a list of your board and the makeup of it and who was all on the board, names and where they're from.
We can provide that.
Do you not have it right at hand now that you could tell us?
Actually, I do.
That'd be great.
Myself, from Frederick, Roxanne White from Frederick. She's a mail carrier from up in that area, worked in retail. Joe Demmeling, who is the county board representative, sits on it. And that's something that the county board has always had a representative on the tourism council. It's in our bylaws and whatever the enabling thing was. Earl Duckett from Osceola, the chief financial officer. Denise Kay is one of our new members, lives down on Lotus Lake from Osceola. Greg Marston kind of represents the press, does a little PR work for us. You know Greg from county board meetings. And one of our new members is Dan Shilson from Osceola, and he used to be the marketing director for the ARC Center south of Osceola. So we're spread a little bit around the county. We've had people from Amory, we've had people from over in the Clear Lake, Turtle Lake area. And when we have a vacancy, we always try to recruit people from a wide geographic area and a pretty wide collection of backgrounds of people that would be on the tourism council. So that's the makeup. We can sure get you a print copy of that.
No, that's fine. I just was curious on, and you guys meet once a month?
Correct.
All right. And then my last follow-up question is the current funding you guys get, what do you use it specifically for?
I would say about 25% of it is advertising. And depending on, obviously within the last 4 or 5 months, some of that hasn't been used. But if you can get a hold of that, when you look in your mailbox and when you get that at a glance, just about every paragraph in that talks about the different areas that we do advertising in. And one other thing I'll throw in with that, when he mentioned the guidebook, the current contract we have with Five Star Productions, the advertising in that pays us a modest amount of money back, and that's the only guidebook we've found that's produced in that way that does get us a little money back from the advertising.
So what is the balance of so if we give you 70,000 a year, what's the balance used for?
Well, the biggest piece of it is labor costs, employee costs of keeping the business open. We do share the utilities with the city of St. Croix Falls, and that's gone on for a number of years. They gave us a break for a while when the funding kind of dropped off, but we went back 2 years ago in sharing that. We take care of some of the maintenance on the building down there too. So,
all right.
We're members. Pardon me?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just needed to understand it's 2575 on that. And my only comment would be is I just, as a committee member here, I find it hard to, when an organization comes in and says, hey, look at how good our tourism is doing in Polk County, and we've got such new records. Why do we need to fund? And I know you guys explained it, but just personally, I want to tell the other committee members is, why would we be funding an organization that is showing us they've been making all these improvements with their tourism, but yet they want more dollars, and they're not gonna, not gonna get one or two. But I just have a hard time, if clearly you could identify, hey, we have shortfalls and our tourism is going downward. We need to do something to open up more hours. We need to do something to increase tourism. And again, I find it as an economic development issue. And I would like to see the tourism personally tied more in with economic development. And I just look at the dollars we spend on economic development and their board and their structure. And I just personally see a lot more value putting tourism under economic development and combining our dollars. And I have a hard time supporting increase money to tourism when we already pay them more than any other outside agency. And it clearly, obviously, they're doing a good job if our tourism dollars are up so high. And I'll leave it at that, Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Mike Pritchard, just an observation following in on Supervisor Nelson's comments that one of the things we have in Polk County is fantastic natural resources. And we've got a metropolitan area that's an hour away. And in some respects, we may be somewhat of a hidden secret. And I think talking about economic development, I know so many people who have been attracted to this area, including myself, by having opened up to them the opportunities for outdoor recreation, enjoyment of our natural resources. This time of year, just driving around and looking at our beautiful autumn leaves and colors. And so I think there's a very direct tie to the tourism activity. And I want to commend Colleen Foxwell on running a very good ship in the tourism center. And I think it contributes greatly to the health and vitality of our area here. Thank you.
Chair? Chair Barkey.
Are you trying to get in? Are you trying to get in?
Chair, this is Supervisor Johnson. I have a question about the information they were talking about website development. And if I understand correctly, it's a separate website for county tourism, separate from the governmental website. Is that correct?
Anyone like to try? Fran, we can't understand what you're saying. Nobody here can understand what you.
Okay, I'll try to take questions.
Okay. What do you got?
I had one final comment. This is for Chris. You know, when I read off the list of the members on the Tourism Council, there's one number. We used to have it in our at a glance thing, but we haven't put it in there for a while. But we figured, you know, in a normal year when we're going around doing sports shows, and we're normally at the Minneapolis Sports Show and the one in St. Paul in January, and we contract to have stuff taken to sports shows as far away, information taken to sports shows as far away as Indianapolis. But in the kind of the surrounding area between the Twin Cities and the Eau Claire, those members of the Tourism Council put in about $700 total, we figure, of volunteer time helping out promote Polk County. So that's a number that never shows up in a budget anywhere. But you know, you figure out what IRS allows for volunteer time. $700 is a pretty good piece of change that gets volunteered by those people to help promote Polk County and bring visitors here too. So that was just one final comment. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, I'd like to, William, I want to make sure I thank everyone that volunteers in Polk County, whatever agency. It's like Fair Society and you guys too. The only way it works is to your dedication and your volunteerism. And I certainly want to support tourism and support these other outside agencies. I just personally, and I know sometimes it's difficult to say it, but I think you guys, as good as you do, I think you guys could do a better job, and I think you guys could be broader in your what you do. And I think like EDC, I was a part of that for many years. They really reach out, and because of how broad they are, EDC will have they can have a member on their funding. You can have a small little business fund. You have a big corporation help fund. They really reach out to spend a lot of time on funding than just looking to taxpayers to fund EDC. And I guess my feeling is I definitely do not want to fund tourism more, but I'm just one person, so I would not support funding it. And I would actually support reducing funding to tourism, but I won't make that motion. But I will ask you guys to do a better job, reach out to economic development, and reach out across all opportunities. You guys, to me, have come across a little bit as the silent sport organization. And I think if you guys were a little bit broader board and pulled in more professionals, and you would have UTV people on your board, you'd have equestrian people on your board, just get bigger and really feel like you touch everyone in the community, then this group. And that's just my opinion. Thank you again for everything you guys do.
If I could, Mr. Chair. Actually, one of our long-term members on the board was Doug Johnson, who was the president of the AWSC, the Snowmobile Council of Wisconsin. So I think that's kind of an unfair judgment. The current membership, we don't have a member of the Snowmobile group, but we do work with them. We advertise in the AWSC book every year and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of an over.
It wasn't unfair. It was just the fact that I've heard from the community that you guys have a hard time getting other people on your board because you guys are kind of in a certain wheelhouse. And again, I know it's hard to hear that sometimes, criticism, and certainly don't take it personal. But I think you guys could do a better job on getting a broader board.
All right, we got Fran either typed or.
She typed, Supervisor Duncanson had a question that she was trying to say. Supervisor Duncanson states, my question is about the development of a separate website for tourism from the county website. Is there any information on the cost for this? I see a need for this and would support gathering more information on costs.
The preliminary estimates are around $5,000. It's outside cost, the rest of it is internal. But to get the programming done, it's around $5,000. Might be less. We haven't actually quoted it out yet. But that's the kind of number that we're working with.
That was Fran's question.
That was Fred's question. She said she couldn't hear the response. You want to repeat what he said?
You try.
Supervisor Duncanson, the response for the Tourism Council is they haven't priced it out yet. The number they're working with is 5,000 for development and programming. It may be less, but they don't have quotes yet. Does that sum it up?
I would just, if I may, real quickly, having worked with the EDC, some of the things you're talking about in terms of creating a menu of all the different variety of things, it's not unlike what the EDC is doing in terms of what do we have here in Polk County. Now, their focus may be on how do we attract businesses and families to move here. The way you get them here the first time is through tourism. So I really think that the communication of the development of your programs together Don't have to be the same, keep them separate, but if you coordinate them, they're gonna touch more people.
So how does the request for funding come to us?
So we received a formal request August 1st from the Tourism Council through our process. We received their financials and those kinds of things. The formal request was an additional $5,000 one-time fund for the website development.
So that'll come to county board during the budget process?
That comes to the board during the budget process during the possible amendments.
All right. Thanks for your presentation and good luck at budget time. All right, how about the Polk County Museum? We already actually had a quite extensive presentation from the museum already.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna
don't-
be very short. I'm gonna be very short, and I have a short little PowerPoint here. Thank you. Spent 35 years being a special ed teacher, so smart boards and me, this is kind of taking me back. It's great. I want to thank you for having us again at your meeting. As we discussed last time, our main purpose that we're here before you is to secure sustainable funding for a full-time director for the Polk County Museum. You should have received our financials and the job description for our director's position that we sent. Did everybody receive that? Okay.
Okay.
So a full-time director, again, would provide us with year-round staff for daily operations, something that we've never had in our organization. With the help of our board and all volunteers, the director would take on the daily lead of operations, oversee fundraising, including writing some more grants for us, process and digitizing our archival collection, and increasing marketing for this tourist destination. Being available to the community year-round, which doesn't happen right now, for research requests and educational outreach. So our goal that I told you last time was to acquire the $51,000 needed for a full-time director's position. But I'm here today with a proposal asking the county to increase us so that we could get $25,000 for this year. And then we would match and put in $26,000 through our reserves and our fundraising. I just want you to know that this plan, or this full-time staff using this plan, is not sustainable for us in the long term, but we'd like to move towards that $51,000 eventually. So let us show you, give us this year, and let us show you that what we can do with a dedicated staff. And then next year, we would come to you with our 5-year plan, which includes plans for using our organization to increase tourism, to increase our historic activities, including opening the museum full-time for visitors. And we would ask at that time that we fully fund the director. So I think that our plan for a full-time staff corresponds with the Polk County Comprehensive Plan for cultural resources and promoting, preserving, and saving our history. And the policy under here, policy 3, talks about supporting and funding local historical societies. Okay. So before we take any questions, I just wanted to highlight 3 examples of the thousands of documents that we have in our archives. People think of our museum and they think of all the objects that we have in the museum. But we have really historic Polk County documents in our archives that we preserve and store. Some of those are like the county board proceedings going back to 1863 that are all handwritten. We have the county board of supervisors, the annual meetings, And the official proceedings, again, dating back to 1889, all the way through the current year that we're housing and storing. And then some of the unique Polk County documents that we have. One I wanted to show you is this is an actual propaganda flyer that was used in 1898 to entice people to move the county seat from Osceola to Polk County. And so we have that original propaganda information as well. So ultimately, our goal is to be a premier tourist destination open all year long to our community. To provide Polk County residents the opportunity to immerse themselves in the culture and the history of the Polk County area. We look forward to partnering with you, and we will take questions at this time.
How much grant opportunity do you think will be available with that person in a full-time role?
So the grant opportunities, there are grants to get. It just takes time for a person to write those all down. A lot of those grants, like I said before, don't cover operating expenses, so they're for activities, or we could use that to buy the preservation storage materials that we need. But I know that we are going to go for at least $25,000 in grants next year with the director, and we have a list of those grants that we've gotten in the past, and so we're looking to increase our grants next year at $25,000.
Well, I understand the grant function of that and the fact that you can't use it for operating, but will you be allowed to move some funds that you're currently using, that you're not getting grants for, to the operational side?
Yes, we will. Yeah.
Anybody, Chris or anybody, Fran, Mike, any questions? Comments?
I have one. What your request is for 50% of a proposed salary? Well, we just heard the museum's using, we give them $70,000 a year. They're saying they're using 75% of those funds for staff.
You mean the tourism?
Or excuse me, tourism. So at 70,000, what's 75% of 70,000? Could someone do the quick math?
53.5.
So we're paying $53,000 a year for staff time at tourism, and asking for 25,000 for staff at museum. Is that correct then?
That's correct for this year, yes.
And what is your total budget a year to operate the museum?
We're, without staffing, it's about 38,000 is our operating budget.
And typically, how many hours are you open, or days or months a year?
We're open from Memorial Day to Labor Day, Thursday to Monday. That's all with volunteer hours. And
How many
that's 12 to 4.
How many volunteer hours do you guys think is used to operate the museum and the historical society?
This year alone, we've calculated 4,000 hours because all volunteers are doing the operating right now.
Who are your board members, and how do you guys operate as a board?
We have monthly meetings, and so I don't have the names of all of we've just put on 4 new board members. We had our annual meeting in October. So we have 11 board members. Do you want me to name them?
Please.
Okay. So myself, Greta Palmberg, I'm the president. Our vice president is Bernie Dismaris, and our secretary is Carolyn Radisky. Our treasurer is Hillary Hinkie, who works at the Bremer Bank in Balsam Lake. And so on our board, we have Tom Magnifici, We have Alan Foxwell. We have Larry Sismet, and Ruth, can never say her last name. McGrowler, yeah, they've been on for a while. And then we just added a brand new board member, Lisa Mose, to represent the Native American and Ojibwe history.
Thank you. My comment is I would support the funding of that this year, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right. There's no one else chiming in? Thanks.
Thank you very much.
This is Mike Pritchard again. I think a month ago I spoke, what a wonderful resource the Polk County Museum is. And I certainly support the concept of having a paid staff person at a county historical society museum level. We look at our surrounding counties, and I think they probably St. Croix and Chisago and so on do have executive directors who are paid, and I think it's a valuable resource, and I'm just enthusiastic about all that Greta's been doing, and would fully support paying half of the salary for an executive director.
All right. Anything else on our agenda? We don't have to hold them here. Otherwise, we're just gonna stay in order. All right.
Mr. Chair, oh, go ahead. Mr. Chair,
You got it?
how did we leave the library matter?
It's coming.
Oh, it's coming later. Okay, thank you.
Someone is on the web to speak to that.
Well, Chris Serball was here and said she had to leave. Are there any other participants on the web from the library to speak for the library other than Supervisor Duncanson?
So we'll do that when it comes up on the agenda. If there's no one waiting to speak to it.
Thank you very much.
I want an update regarding the COVID-19 budget.
Quick rundown, our expenses are approaching around 200 grand. Although we do have the routes to recovery money and other CARES funding that's come in. So I think we're still well in position to recoup pretty much all of those costs. Sales tax is actually tracking extremely well. We're $175,000 ahead of last year. So we anticipate finishing sales tax around 3.9 million this year, and we were budgeted for 3.325. So sales tax is doing well. Property tax collections are a little ahead of where they were this time last year. So overall, I think we've fared well. Most departments are operating within their budget. Some are doing well under their budget. We've still held a lot of positions, not allowing positions to fill. We do have one or two outlier departments that have deficits. We're trying to close those deficits, but I think presently we anticipate we will finish on budget despite COVID. That's my 30 seconds.
Very good. Who's giving us an update regarding the space analysis and bonding? Is there any update to be given?
I can provide an update on the bonding. So the board authorized me to investigate financing options. We got a 30-day rate quote from Bremer. I received it October 1st under the idea that we would borrow $5.9 million in 2021 for what was titled Phase 1 and $2 million in 2022 titled Phase 2 at a borrow rate of 1.83%, which is a very low rate for financing. I had PMA, our finance people, do me a schedule of what they think are conservative interest rates if we went to the capital market. And those came back, they're estimating 2% rates borrowing for 5.9 million in 2021 and 2 million in 2022, and then 3% rates for the next 7 years. I also had a debt plan similar to the one you saw before. What would it look like? What would our capacity be? The key thing to remember is originally our bonding plan was based on the idea of carrying a $2.8 million debt load year to year. In 2021, our debt load drops to 2.4 million without any more borrowing because our debt's going down, so our debt payment's lower. I had PMA do 2 scenarios. Number one, increasing that load to 2.8, continuing on, leaving it at 2.4. We leave it at 2.4. We can borrow 5.9 million in 2021, 2 million in 2022, 1.5 million a year for 2023 through 2027, with a chunk borrowing of 2.3 million at the end of that 2027 period, and not exceed the $2.4 million debt load limit. We can shape that borrowing for that total of 15 million, however we want it in that time period to keep that payment the same. In doing that, you will see the mill rate. The mill rate presently, with or without any more borrowing, will drop from 57 to, I believe it's 46 or 43 for the debt load borrowing, 0.57 to 0.43, which is what taxpayers see. If we do borrow, we can maintain that mill rate as well if we keep the $2.4 million limit. So I guess the synopsis is rates are extremely historically low right now. We're able to continue to borrow on a borrowing plan to continue the county improvements, which would continue the plan adopted many, many years ago under Dana. And we can actually continue to borrow while at the same time reduce what the taxpayers are paying per head for the debt limit. Did any of that make sense?
Yeah, it's just we're not at the point of bonding or borrowing yet. So
what I did was
you can only
investigate.
speak to that portion of it.
Yes, sir. I can only speak to my investigation portion of it.
So where are we at regarding the space analysis?
We are going to have it during the orientation, a walking tour of the mechanical and the infrastructure aspects that are covered. So as you recall, the headline was, we got 40-year lifespans on this stuff, and it's already at 46 years. We're going to show you what it looks like and where it is. We've also asked for, during this tour, to kind of provide us with insights as to what else gets torn up as we do this. The concept being, when you walk down the hall and say, well, we got to replace all this ductwork, so we'll be removing the ceiling in this room as well. We're going to be tearing a lot of things apart to do that. Then the question is, do we just put everything back the way it was? Or do we try to improve the security, the ease of access to our customers or the citizens, especially the elderly and the vets and those types of things? And do we improve our efficiencies and kind of set us up for the future? So that's kind of where we are in that tour. You'll get a little bit of that walking presentation. And you'll get a better explanation from Wald, I think, in terms of, I think what they said was, let's just figure everything by so much a square foot. Here's how much it costs to do this. In reality, when you tear up this room, for example, you got to put it back together anyway. How are you going to put it back? So you'll get a better explanation as to what all's involved. I think also Wald put this in phase 1 and phase 2. In reality, this is really a one project deal. Now, you can limit what you do. You can say, just do this and stop. But as Chad said in the borrowing, we've got all that money that we could borrow upfront or bond for, and you're gonna see that we'll cover, the mechanical and/or we can choose to move on to the additional reorganizing.
All right, anybody got any questions on it? What do we got going at the recycling center? Discussion and possible action regarding the recycling center.
I could tell you one thing we have is, and Mo has done a great job, and we get questions at every one of these meetings and we go look at. We've got information from all different counties of what's going on. We're looking for direction. And so Mr. Nelson stepped up and provided a resolution to introduce regarding, it says to improve and modify the recycling program in Polk County, to phase out the recycling center and transition to a coordinated county program for recycling. So I think, and Mr. Nelson's idea is, let's look at the recycling center, and if we close it out, and Chris, I don't want to put words in your mouth, what would that look like? How long would it take? And if we do that, what type of program would be best suited for the citizens of Polk County to replace it when we shut that down, if we chose to do that? So Chris, I don't want to misrepresent, so feel free to jump in.
Yeah, Chair, and that's what it was. It's basically, we seem to be kicking this can year after year. And so the intent of this resolution was to say, we don't just want to shut the recycling center down. We want to improve the recycling program to where we have more buy-in countywide to improve recycling in the rural areas, like where I live. I just think we can improve our recycling our program. I just don't think we should be in the business of running a recycling center that's already being run by private companies out in our, and I think someone else could probably, it's already a private business. I just don't feel like it's a good fit for county. We could use those funds. We've heard we put in $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year sometimes out of county general fund, out of our budget, out of state grant money. So clearly this run in this facility we run, it can't break even unless we would put major dollars into it. So I've finally just said, can we just get a path that our county board could agree on to improve the program, to look at shutting the facility down, and with this programming, give staff a year to work a plan that they would bring back to the county board. So it's, this resolution doesn't say shut it down. It just says, give you a year. So before next budget season, staff would come back to the county board and say, and work with us during the year probably too, but you would come back and say, here's what it would look like without a facility, and here's how we can improve the recycling in Polk County. So that was kind of the intent of the resolution.
And Chris, does this need to get to county board?
Yes, it does. I believe it does.
Well, then we need a motion to get it there.
I'll make a motion.
Now we move it to county board.
If you need a motion made, I'll make it. I don't know what the right procedure is, but I'm bringing it to a committee because we've been working on it.
County board.
I don't know that it needs a recommendation even. Maybe it can just go to county board. I'll leave that up to Malia.
The committee can decide to send it with or without a recommendation. So if you're just passing it along, because it is, you know, a big decision, and you don't want to make an opinion right now on it. You could move it to county board with a neutral recommendation.
Is it on the docket for county board?
It can be. We have time.
You want it at county board, Chris, this next meeting?
Yeah, if it's possible, I would.
Well, then I think with a motion to move it there in a second, it would get there. We have the motion, so we have a second. All right, we have a second, so any more discussion on it? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I,
Are you voting opposed or in favor, Chris?
I would be voting in favor to move it to the county board.
Right, is anyone opposed? Then we're gonna say the motion carries. What are we,
Now, Mo has a update, I think.
I just handed out kind of like a monthly update of how we're doing right now with recycling and where we stand right now on where the funding is with that, so you guys can look at that. It gives a cost breakdown of what's coming in and what's going out on expenses over revenues right now. We're trending very well right now at this time and what we project for next year with our new fees. It's more information for you guys on your decision-making process.
So it is doing better now. And we project next year for it to be doing pretty well as well. Of course, there will be, if we continue that, to Mr. Nelson's point, if we continue that, there will be significant capital improvements that need done at that facility.
Right now, we are trending currently revenues over expenses, so we're running in the black right now.
all right. How about what is going with resolution 4720?
So before you is a resolution that makes a slight amendment to the present personnel policies. The minor change is changing the wording from employee relations. Darlene's passing out copies of the revision. The wording from employee relations to human resources. This change was done last year in the budget cycle, but needs to be adopted into the policies. The material change before you is to change wording for elective benefit eligible employees to be defined as working an average of 30 hours per week, 1,560 annually, as opposed to an average of 20 hours per week. This is in compliance, keeps the county in compliance with federal requirements under the ACA and other obligations. The net effect of this for presently enrolled on our books, we have one employee working less than 30 hours average per week that utilizes our elective benefits. There are additional hours available for that employee in the capacity they work if they choose to up their hours in order to maintain benefits. But what it does for us and for my HR team is it makes the management of the benefits and the tiers more scalable. Presently, we have a very wide scale tier of eligibility and rules, and this consolidates that, staying with market trends and with federal regulations. There will be a more comprehensive revision for personnel policies, financial policies, and we're going to write IT policies for general government division as a whole, which will be on the agenda for December. But this is one we need to make if the board so chooses prior to open enrollment, which begins November 12th, I believe. Is that right? November 12th?
It's 2 days after.
November 12th, yep.
2 days after the county board.
Right. So this will need to be on the October board if the committee so chooses to forward it.
So the portion that speaks to the 30 hours on page 8
and you'll see it highlighted. There, the human resources is throughout the document. You'll see noted in red. There's one other change, just on page 4. It's just to mirror the federal standards. Supreme Court had changed the protected classes for certain groups of folks through the Supreme Court ruling this summer. So we always have the catchphrase, and any other federal or state policies are protected through our equal opportunity. However, just because we have that information, we have it in front of you, I took the liberty of including that portion. Any questions?
I recommend the committee forward this to the full board.
Or we could use a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, what do we got? Resolution 4820, set those library rates.
This resolution was requested by Supervisor Duncanson, I believe. So,
Yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Chair?
It's a long discussion on it. What do you got?
Well, you know, and the only reason I raised this question is the city of Amory, Mayor Paul Isaacson wrote us a letter saying that it would be beneficial to municipalities' budgets. And when we've had this discussion before on conflict of interest, I just want to make sure that, you know, we're good in Corporation Council, unless Fran is going to, is this a conflict of interest with Supervisor Duncanson working for a municipality? It would be helpful for their budget. Is that a conflict?
Does Osceola have a library? Yes, it would.
It would be a conflict, but not at this point, at county
At
board.
county board.
So,
Right. There can be discussion, but I just think here's a situation where Supervisor Duncanson should acknowledge that there's a conflict in how she would be voting or not voting.
yeah, I think for right now, all we need is the motion to get this to county board. If someone wants to make that motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second Pritchard.
Do we need any more discussion?
I would just say that the resolution that was put several years ago was, it was a goal, which we moved it up to 80%. They said the goal was to get it up to 100% within 5 years. So this is in line with that goal and gets us a step closer.
Yeah, Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I made the motion to move it to county board. I certainly don't support the resolution as far as that we should be funding that, because I think we need a broader discussion on how this affects the rural taxpayers. And that's why I think it's a benefit to taxpayers that live in municipalities. And I think new supervisors should get a full explanation of the impact it has on taxpayers in the townships and the county broader. But I don't support funding it. It was never the plan that we would do it this year. And but I will support it going to the county board so there can be more detail in this discussion.
Yeah, but I think that's what we're looking for right now, is just to get it to county board and have everybody get the same kind of presentation.
Right, okay.
All right, all those in favor? Opposed? All right, we're gonna say. What's going on? The liaison, the Polk County Historical Society and Museum.
Chairman, I couldn't hear what you said.
We're on the liaison to the Polk County Historical Society and Museum. Do you have some lead the discussion on that?
You know, I don't, and I just guess I'd like to. I don't have anyone I've reached out to. I don't know what would be the right process. Do I would typically work with the museum? I just, it's unfamiliar territory for me, so I'm not sure what the expectations are for me and how do I pick someone to do the job.
Anybody got an idea for them?
Has there been a decision to put a supervisor on the board of the museum or historical society? Do we need that first?
I don't know, it was just at the last meeting, I mean, it was just talked about that, you know, somehow we stay in contact with them, like we do the fair and.
We do fund them in ways already with how we do repairs and those types of things. I think it makes sense to have a like Mr. Warrendahl and the Fair Society. I think especially considering the level of funding that they're coming at us right out of the gate, so to speak, you know, to 25,000, which is a high amount. Certainly, I think we would want representative if we went that high.
So perhaps we, just brainstorming, we could ask them to amend their bylaws to require county board supervisor be on their board of directors. That way we wouldn't have to change and make that.
Chairman? Chair?
Everyone.
I think
Who was trying to talk?
I'm talking.
All right, either somebody else's mic is open because you're starting to get real.
I just muted Mr. Pritchard. His mic was open.
Go ahead, Chris.
So what I would suggest, and I would be fine with it for the rest of my term, that I would volunteer to be that liaison to get it started with. I'm sure they would be very excited to have someone that thinks everything in their buildings for could be bought at a garage sale comment guy. They may not appreciate me on there, but I certainly would do it if and it's in Balsam Lake and I'm in Balsam Lake. So they'd probably enjoy educating me on the historical value of their contents.
What did you hear Malia's idea to get there?
I did, and I think that's good that they would be required to put it in their bylaws, and then I could appoint, you know, with
Yeah.
the board. So I'm all good with however you guys want to do it. I would volunteer for that specific one.
So who is going to talk to the historical society? I can call them.
I think that'd be the administrator's job to let them know they'd have to, or someone staffs to get their paperwork cleaned up to do this.
All right. All right, moving right along. We got one more page to go and then we're done. We're gonna get an update, or have we already gotten it, between the meeting held between City of St. Croix Falls Fair Society? Have we already gotten that?
Yes, Chair, you got that at our executive meeting. I guess Supervisor Warrendahl is here now, and I explained to the executive committee earlier of my discussion with Supervisor Warrendahl, being he's the liaison, and talk to him a little bit about how we can kind of smooth the waters here and maybe do that that open house idea. And so I guess at this point, I'd rather back out of what my role was in that and let Supervisor Warrendahl follow up on what he thinks and what he wants to do about it.
Are we good on that topic, or do we need more discussion, or?
I think we are for now. I haven't had really a chance to, being I've been out of town, I haven't had a chance to meet and talk to people, so.
All right, how about our?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead,
Mike Pritchard, I don't know if everyone is aware that on there was a meeting of Chris Nelson, Vince Netherland, Janice Larson, and Carrie Malene Swenson of the Polk County Fair Society Board, Kirk Anderson, the mayor of St. Croix Falls, Jeff Furkow, a council member, and Joel West, the city administrator. And I suspect it's the first time that all of these stakeholders had been in the same room together to have some discussion. There are some significant issues, particularly for the city of St. Croix Falls and its residents, about plans that are being proffered for the fairgrounds. And I don't know, was there going to be a report on that meeting or not a report on the meeting today?
all we had was an update from Chairman Nelson, and I think he gave his update that he is passing everything on to Supervisor Warrendahl.
With respect, and I think what really got most of this going probably was our resolution back in November of 2018 to approve a grandstand project of $1.3 million. And we have heard very, very little about any specifics about this. And I sent an email to Administrator Netherland saying, is there somewhere where it's written down what the policy of Polk County, the Polk County Board is vis-a-vis the Polk County Fairgrounds and the Polk County Fair Society that could be summarized in 50 words or less, or 100 words or less, or however. And I still have a feeling of frustration that there are things going on that are significant both to the county and the county taxpayers and to the city of St. Croix Falls, and not getting fully aired or discussed at the county board level by the supervisors.
Well, when there was, and it's prior to my time, when there was an agreement to build or commit to the grandstand, I think it was then that was determined we needed to, or we determined or discovered we needed to rework the MOU with the Fair Society. To make that big of an investment into it, we needed to have some more assurances that they'd be a partner with us going forward. The details of the original MOU, I can't get into here in open session because that's part of the negotiating process. But since then, we've looked at it and said, if we're going to invest that much money, we need to have a better understanding and agreement with the Fair Society of the types of things that they'll be doing to assure that they can be successful now and going into the future. They've done a great job for the past 100 years or so. But now, as the city has changed, as the fairgrounds have evolved, how should we go forward? And I think that's where we as the county is simply saying, before we invest what appears to be up to $2 million now into that area, we need to make sure that the city and the Fair Society have a business plan that it makes sense to all of us.
I think for having said, I think I just heard the $2 million number. And the resolution was for 1,300,000 for a grandstand. And to my knowledge, at least while I've been on the General Government Committee, there's been no discussion about these matters. And what I'm saying is I think that at the county board level and certainly at this committee level that we should have an open discussion of where this may be going, and is it where we are looking to go and spend that amount of money. And I'm asking that take place, and I think we're skirting around it with these so-called skirmishes or whatever you might call it among the stakeholders. And I think we should have an open, honest, frank discussion about whether we're looking to spend $2 million or more on the fairgrounds at this point, and how it's going to be spent and what the consequences are going to be for the people who are involved. That's the message I would like to convey. And I think if we're setting the policy, we need to have some policy discussions.
Chair?
Mr. Chairman, the grandstand project, the steering committee for that project is the executive committee. The executive committee has been getting the updates and the project updates as we've been moving forward with the project. It has been lying in the executive committee, not in general government.
We haven't had, to my knowledge, any discussion. At one point it was going to be, and maybe it is still on for an open committee of the whole discussion at our October board meeting. But I don't know.
Chairman?
As a supervisor from St. Croix Falls, I have a special interest.
Chris, are you aware, is anything on county board for
Yeah, let me address Supervisor Pritchard's comments. I agree. It's been on the executive committee's agenda. We talk about it thoroughly. I gave everyone an update this morning on executive. Supervisor Pritchard, you could go back and watch that video to get updated if you weren't able to attend it, but it was notified on the agenda. One of the suggestions, just so you know, was to have an open house prior to the planning commission meeting that the fair and St. Croix Falls has. City of St. Croix Falls has laid out a timeline on planning meetings, review process, public hearings, and City of St. Croix Falls basically said, sometime winter, January, February-ish. It won't even get to their village board until then. So we were asking that maybe staff at Polk County, Cedar Corp, and the fair and a couple of supervisors would attend this open house. We thought that it would vet a lot of misinformation out there. And at this point, I don't think there's any reason to have a discussion about something. I don't have an idea what we're going to be discussing. this agreement is really between the Fair Society and the city of St. Croix Falls. Once that issue is resolved between the Fair Society and the city of St. Croix Falls MOU, then it will come back to the county board, and we will then decide whether or not what type of funding, and also an executive. You'll understand that it's staying on our executive committee, Super Pritchard, and there was a discussion held that we were going to have staff look at other resources to look at the possibility of, are there other areas in the county where the fair could be relocated if things don't work out at their current location.
All right, that's probably enough discussion on that. How about our 2020 work plan?
So, Mr. Chair, there is something I would like to add to the annual work plan, new, and I'd like it to start this December, and that's a review of general government policies. I think it would be good to review those each year, specifically personnel, IT, and finance. It's something we haven't done in the past. We review them when they're brought up that we want changes. But I've got several changes in mind, but I think we should do an annual thing on it. I think December is a good time to do it before the new year starts. I'd like to start it this December and then make it recurring for future years if the committee so chooses.
Anyone have a comment on doing that? If not, we'll start doing it. Or add it to our work plan anyway.
Chair,
Who's trying to get in?
Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the proper spot again on the MOUs with these outside agencies or not. But again, I'll go back. I think I talked about it at executive that these MOUs where we're funding these outside agencies, I'd just like a little more accountability of what are fundings being used for, and a little more structure on what kind of organizations are they, what type of boards do they have, what are their, if we're paying for, we're funding them for these staffing costs that they're absorbing that they want us to fund, such as hours of operation. I just think it's the constituents should be, I just feel like our MOUs need to be tightened up a bit, and so I guess, is that general government or is that executive? I don't know, but we're funding them, and I just thought we should keep them on our plate, and because I can tell you what, some of these MOUs, especially the one with tourism, is about 2 sentences long. We don't have a clue what they're really using their money for.
So I guess my suggestion would be, Chair Nelson and Chair Arcand, we use the executive committee, for instance, with the fair as the steering committee, and we use the general government committee as the funding committee. So I would suggest with the MOUs that as far as accountability and steering, we would design those for the executive committee to maybe put in their work plan each year. And as far as the funding requests, they would come to general government, and executive committee could speak as an outside supervisor as far as how they think that they've performed for that year. Would just be a suggestion.
Well, hey, Chairman, I take note this year, again, everyone's running in at the last minute with their handout for money. And I certainly think it would be fair to staff, administration, and certainly Chad, that we sifted through these requests a month or two prior to him having to put all this time in right now. I know the county staff develops their budgets earlier in the year, and it just feels like everyone waits to the last minute, and then they're asking for money, and we ask questions, and we may not get another time to kick the can. And hopefully maybe general government could send a message that we need to do a better way of getting this on our agenda than the last minute.
Chair Nelson, I had considered for the committee's approval in the December policies, putting in policy of a deadline for outside funding requests to be received and reviewed. I could set that in policy that they have to be received by a certain date in the year, which would allow both executive and general government time to evaluate them before we get into the budget crunch season. I guess I was thinking maybe along the lines of May or June for any requests, and then that would give the committees time to evaluate requests instead of the last minute.
Yeah, thanks. That would be helpful, I think.
I'll make sure that's in the policy rewrites.
We need another meeting.
Yeah, last year we had a meeting after the county board meeting. I need a special meeting before the county board meeting regarding the budget. And I would request the only two topics on there be the resolution, the budget resolution, and reviewing the operating capital budget with recommendations for next Thursday or Friday at whatever time the committee chooses. I'll make myself available. That's my request.
I know, did everyone get contacted on that meeting?
Email did go out.
No.
That's Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. So, anyone comment Thursday or Friday?
What about time of the day?
Oh, they were talking either like an afternoon meeting, even like at 5:30 or something. Yeah.
I did check historically, we have done during budget season, we
Would anyone have an issue with, say, Thursday at 5:30?
Chairman,
Go ahead.
I have a question. Couldn't this meeting just be an hour before a county board meeting?
The only problem that would cause, to be honest, Chair, is we have to have the public hearing. Well, it could be in October. We could, before the October board meeting, we could do that. The only thing is, if the general government wants an adjustment to the budget, that wouldn't go to the county board. We'd have to wait till November to put that on there. So if you guys recommend, because what I'll do today in finishing up the budget is also, I've kind of got an idea of what you guys might want to see in the budget. If you wanted to adjust that, we would just do it between the October and November instead of between Thursday night and Tuesday. I could accommodate, I can make it work.
Well, Chris, you proposed we meet at 5 before the county board meeting.
Yeah, we're already taking the time off for county board meeting. I have a difficult right now with my work schedule to take off any more
2 hours.
Yeah.
You need 2 hours?
Well, potentially, they'll get the budget, they're talking, or an hour. They'll get the budget by Friday. They have Friday till Tuesday to review it. And then the committee an hour to go, I think we can. 5 to 6. I got 7 in my head, I'm sorry.
All right, how about that? Then we'll figure the general government will meet at 5 o'clock after the county board meeting. Everybody's okay with that? All right. We need to identify some more subject matters.
We'll have the standard review of budget amendments and technical edits. The committees in November. That'll be the standard that's on there every November.
The second Thursday.
So it's first this year. We have to have the budget meeting by the second Tuesday.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
what documents will we be looking at that meeting and when will they be available?
You'll get the documents by Friday, Mr. Pritchard. What you will get is a column report, the departmental reports, and the capital project reports, both the outside funding agency reports.
Sunday night?
Oh, Friday.
Friday. Okay.
Next Friday, and you'll have them all weekend before Tuesday.
All right, well, we probably have enough subject matters going that we don't have to try to make any new ones. So I would say we would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Pritchard?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Well,
12:21.
I will be unavailable on the
for the November 5th meeting.